so super excited today and honored because I'm speaking to someone I've been looking up to since my safety net journey started, and someone that's taught me so much. And this is Brad Huddleston. So, Brad, thank you for joining me today. And all the way from the USA, Brad Huddleston is an internationally respected speaker, consultant, a teacher, and author. And I need to list your books. The Dark Side of Technology, Restoring Balance in the Digital Age, Digital Cocaine, A Journey Towards Balance, and that one I know has been really well received in South Africa. And the latest one, which I have here in my hands tonight, is the Digital Rehab, Learning to Live Again in the Real World. Brad, I honor your time, and I'm super excited to be joined by another warrior who's fighting the same cause and battle. So thank you for joining me.
Rianette, listen, the honor is mine. It was a joy to meet you at UNISA, and I'm happy to serve you in any way that I possibly can. I appreciate you and what you're doing and allowing me on your platform. So thank you.
It's a pleasure, Brad. And tonight, when we saw each other earlier in September 2022 this year, and I got this book, which is still brand new on the market, I was just really thankful to see the work that you do, and again to be reminded of your, I almost don't want to use the word passion. It's to me, passion is used a lot. Your dedication and drive for this cause. But tell us why. Why did you become so interested in technology and social media and the impact thereof? What was that moment? Was there a moment, or how did it happen?
My background, when I graduated from university, I have 2 degrees, and I got them on the same day. I have a computer science degree, a 4-year degree in computer science, and I graduated from Bible college. So I went through the line with the holy people and got that piece of paper. Then I had to break through and go through with the nerds and get that piece of paper. So the journey started in university with my love for God and the Word of God, and then my love for technology. So that's where it began. And then what started this whole thing, I was, I'm in ministry, but what started this whole journey with the technology and ministry and combining the two, a youth leader at our church, our home church here in the U.S., came to me many years ago, probably 15, 18 years ago. I'm terrible with numbers, but it was a long time ago. And she asked me for help. And she started showing me profiles on, if you remember MySpace, the predecessor to Facebook. She started showing me all these profiles of these kids along with pictures, and they were doing things that we didn't have names for back then that we do now, like sexting. They were just using foul language, but when I looked carefully, these were kids in our youth group. So the church that we attend obviously is a Bible-based church. It's good families, or I wouldn't go there. But under the cover of darkness, these children were doing some very nefarious things. And so I started looking into the other churches where I would go minister here in the States, and Christian schools and public schools. And it was the same. It wasn't just our church. So I had a television show at that time on a network here. And I went to the network and I pitched them this idea of doing this dark side of social media or something like that. And they bought it. And I produced this 1-hour special. So some friends in Australia were watching, because we go to Australia a lot. And they asked me if I could adapt it culturally for them. And so we went down there and did that. And eventually I had to write a book because people wanted more information about it. So that's where it started. It wasn't something that I asked for, because as you well know, it's not always pleasant when you are dealing with people's addictions. They can get quite upset with you, and it's difficult to fund a ministry like this because of the negative perceptions. But the drive obviously comes from the ministry, where you want to help people. You love people. If when you care for families and you care for children, even when they're kicking and screaming, there's something in you drives you to want to help them. So that's where it comes from. It comes from God.
And that's why it won't, unfortunately, and fortunately for us, it won't leave you, right?
No.
It is a mission, and it's an ongoing one. And I have said thanks to you before, but I just want to say that, we we back you up and encourage you to keep on going. And
Thank
I think because it started so close to home, because it's so easy to sometimes think, yeah, not, we're all here, not my child, or not in our house, or not in our church, never. But when it is so close to home, it hits another nerve, right?
Mhm. It does. When it hits your own family, as you mentioned, church family, people that you have known for years, and suddenly there's a personality change, total personality change in someone,
Mm,
and then and they that before, and it's several of them, and you start to see a pattern, and you care about these folks. I think what is so frustrating though is that most of the people, and I'm sure you share this, Renette, in your experience, most of the people that you speak to agree with you, but they probably think that they and their children are the exception to everything that we say. So
yeah.
there's another layer of denial, which is typical addiction. So in our own family, for example, the frustrating thing is you clearly, as an outsider, I mean, you're related to them, but you're not around them a lot. You get around them on holidays and you see these patterns, you see these symptoms, and they're just as clear as they can be. But then there's denial. But something in you, it's love, just keeps you driving you to go help them. And as far as backing me, I want to say South Africa has been, of all the places that we go around the world, and there's quite a number of those places, by far the most support that we receive would be South Africa, the most open, encouraging, and I'm part of, as you know, University of South Africa, and they have me in collaboration with their Bureau of Market Research in the Consumer Neuroscience Division.
Yeah.
They approached me, and I'm not a neuroscientist. Obviously, I'm self-taught after having written these books, but just the care that folks in your country have for your own country. We've lost that here, to be honest with you. I love my country, but we've lost that.
Mm.
So to surround me and to back me the way they have, carte blanche, reached out to me, and then just so many people. So why wouldn't I want to come and be part of your country every chance I get?
That's
And
all.
it's just giving me a platform and being published there and so forth. So we love you guys and appreciate what you do in contribution to the other nations that I am then able to go into.
That's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, Brad. And I know you and Beth, you stay in Virginia, the beautiful United States on that side. So it's always great to hear positive feedback in terms of the amazing people in South Africa and
Mhm.
the experience you've had here. And Brad, I mean, if I look at all the impressive resources you've shared, I mean, it's never ending. The list goes on, and you've made so many resources available to us. Now, I want to just stop and pause for a moment at this new book, Digital Rehab, and it focuses on learning to live again in the real world. Why is this book a must read?
We have reached a very dangerous point in that where we have mass addiction around the world. I'm not exaggerating. In fact, I'm probably withholding some of the things that I know and see.
Mm,
We are at a literal dangerous, very dangerous point where children have been given the equivalent of cocaine, because, as you know, the other book was called Digital Cocaine, and that doesn't come as a metaphor. Those are brain scans
yes.
that are showing clear addiction, both with digital addiction, liking it to cocaine as well as heroin. And then with pornography, it's a mixture of the two. It's a polydrug effect. So these brain scans are very real. And as we see the metaverse coming on, which I'm writing a book about that right now, as soon as I've finished the one that you're holding in your hand, I actually started the research prior to that.
Mm,
We're at a place now where addiction is accelerating at very, very dangerous levels in terms of people's mental health. So the suicide rates are up,
mm,
tremendously. And when you trace that back, and the self-harm, it's social media in particular is what's causing that. So kids, as you well know, are comparing themselves to other kids, and then they get eating disorders. And then there's the bullying, which they end up, some of them, with post-traumatic stress disorder. And these things are just growing exponentially. And so detox is what this book is about. It's trying to encourage people to go on a journey where they literally achieve homeostasis in the brain again.
Okay.
And so it's a clinical look at what happens with dopamine levels by age group and all of those sorts of things in order for the brain to reach, so the chemicals can go back to normal or homeostasis.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's a difficult one. It's probably the most difficult book I have ever written in terms of trying to get people to actually follow through and do it. And I don't know what the success, I mean, it's sold well so far. It's not been out long, but at least initially it's done well. But I haven't had any feedback yet. I don't know how many people are going to actually that is required to reach homeostasis, which is, for a child, that's an eternity, but for an adult, that's not very long. I mean, look, I'm already planning my return trip to you guys in August and September, and I'm already stressed because the time is just flying. So it's really not that long to invest in mental wellness.
Yeah.
So we have an explosion, as you know, of a lot of mental illness directly related to the internet, the use of devices, the chemistry being messed up in the brain. So that's the urgency. And that's what this book is about. It is totally doable, especially with God. All things are possible. But, even if you're not a Christian watching this and you want to achieve homeostasis, you can actually do that.
Yeah.
It's not just a God thing. It's a medical thing. And that's where we are. People need help.
Definitely. And I really like the fact that your book is very practical and it's very detailed. I mean, it's really, it doesn't just state the problem, it gives solutions. I love the scriptures. And of course, the maintenance part to me was critical because it's so easy for us to go on a diet or fix something now. And like we've been actually molded and changed to have these, we want things instantly, so people can find an instant solution to detox, but then easily go back to their, our regular ways. And in a way, it's very tough. I mean, you and I have discussed this before, is that it's really tough in this day and age to take a break from digital devices and what we are expected to do online, the way we need to navigate this space. So what I really appreciate is the fact that you've included the maintenance part and just the practical guidance of it. So I wanted to know how the response has been. Well, the good thing that you've mentioned is the fact that it's it's available and it's been bought. And I think you will get more feedback as we work through it and as people actually do the work, because it is a tough one. I think it's like you say, it's in your book, you say it's a challenging experience. And what do you think, Brad, is the biggest hurdle for people who realize that digital addiction is a problem and that they need to do something about it, but they just don't take the steps? What do you think is the hurdle?
I think the biggest hurdle is the shame.
Okay.
Anytime someone is addicted, they have to admit it. And I think the humility that is required to say, you know what, no matter what this is going to cost me, because you are dealing with an addiction on the same level as cocaine and heroin.
Mm.
And if you've ever dealt with the traditional drugs of heroin or alcoholism, there comes a point when, if they don't voluntarily go in to dry themselves out, if they're an alcoholic, say, they'll be forced to do it. They may have cirrhosis of the liver. They may jaundice. They may get to the point where they're forced to do it because they collapse. They have convulsions, or they have some sort of, thing go wrong where they're then admitted to the hospital, and they have no choice. So the goal of the book is, secondly, the most difficult thing would be to get people to do this ahead of a collapse, because with digital addiction, it's a mental problem. It's not the liver. It's not the lungs like smokers. It is a mental condition.
Mm.
And so when people have a mental problem, to admit that is very difficult for people. They don't want to be seen as weak. I understand that. Nobody wants to fess up to having anxiety disorders and depression and suicidal thoughts, which these are the top symptoms of digital addiction.
Yes.
But until we humble ourselves, you can't be helped. And that's true of any addiction to whatever drug it may be. including, the digital ones. But the good news is there are so many people with compassion around. I mean, look at yourself and the people that we were with at UNISA.
Yeah.
Any one of those people in leadership, we could easily form a friendship and go, you know what, I need help. And we would instantly have friends. If you attend a good church, and you're involved, there are people that you don't need to go to everybody. There are some people that talk too much, but there are people who don't talk and they love, and they're a support base. And
Yes.
that's really all you need. I tell people, when, especially children, when they're cutting themselves, self-harm, the first thing you need to do is go to someone and talk. You need to just talk, and you need to get these pressures off of you. They'll build back up, pop, but to get people over that hump to where they will actually make an appointment with the pastor or a friend and just go admit it, that's probably the biggest challenge.
And it's one that we actually need to be so aware of in all aspects of life. I mean, you touched a little bit on pornography earlier as well, and so many spaces where that fear and the humiliation and the shame creeps in and holds people back. So if I wanted to embark on this digital rehab journey, I know it's going to be a challenge. And in chapter 2 of your book, you talk about these the challenging fact. But what should families be prepared for when they take on this digital detox journey and the rehab challenge?
The first thing I would say is don't rush out and do it unless you're in a crisis mode.
Okay.
If you're approaching the crisis mode, relax and plan. First thing you have to do is plan, because it's going to take time, and you can't break the fast. You can't sneak and do a little bit. You can't. So it takes 4 to 6 weeks with no technology at all. So you have to plan this, and you may have to, not only in addition to your holiday time that you've accumulated, but if you have any mental health days that you can take, or even just humble yourself and ask the boss for some unpaid leave, and accumulate these days, because it has to be contiguous. And so that is the challenging part, is to plan it. If you're in a crisis mode, it's sort of like, it doesn't matter, what's going on in your life. If you get a diagnosis, for example, of cancer, you just pause life and deal with it,
Yes.
And there are people, especially gamers, who have these explosive anger things where they'll trash the house. I mean, you've probably seen some of the pictures that I've shown of kids that we've dealt with, or the police work that I do. I mean, this happens. And in those cases, it doesn't matter what's going on in life. You're going to have to hit the pause button and deal with it. Now, the good news is the brain will respond in 4 to 6 weeks. In fact, 3 weeks, you'll be over usually you're over the worst of the withdrawals, because you're going to have withdrawals.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, preparation and planning, and then sticking to it, and doing it as a family would be the thing that I really emphasized in this, because in traditional drug rehabilitation, it might be just one kid or adult who gets, hooked on the alcohol or something. And then you can isolate that one person from the home in a detox center. But in this case, the average age, for example, globally, of a video gamer is 35 years old.
Yeah,
that's the average age.
Yeah.
So there are more dads who game than their children, but where's all the emphasis? It's on the children, but it needs to be on the dad.
Yeah.
It actually needs to be on both. And then the mothers are often just as addicted, if not more so, to social media than their daughters. So in this particular case, the entire family has to detox. Now, you're talking about a huge challenge here, to put the pause button on all the school activities that require WhatsApp groups. And, but the thing of it is, we're talking about a mental health crisis on a global scale that we're in the middle of right now. And I say it's worth 3 weeks to get over the withdrawals, an extra 3 weeks for neuroplasticity to kick in and to bring help. And then that maintenance that you mentioned, that's really, I could have easily called that lifestyle change, because that's what it's going to require. You cannot go back and do things the way they were. There's no safe amount of a drug. And so we're at I told you at UNISA, this may be the last tour I do. Not because I don't want to, I want to come, but it's hard. This is not a motivational speaker type topic. I mean, we're talking just neurobiology.
Yeah.
These are medical things that are set in stone, that if you do X, Y, Z, notice I said Z because I'm speaking to South Africa instead of Z. If you do X, Y, Z, your brain will respond. If you don't, it won't. So these are, but the good news is it will respond. I hope I've answered your question.
You definitely did. And the fact is, it is doable. It does take planning. And in terms of the maintenance, it's something that I always urge people is have more boundaries, because we don't need to be available 24/7. And people have become so expectant that, on WhatsApp, we want an immediate response and we want people to just answer day and night. And so set those boundaries, and make sure, I think it's important for companies as well to start reevaluating what they expect from the teams. Not to be like we did in lockdowns. People were available all the time because of that, and doing meetings late night. We don't need to do that anymore. So in terms of the maintenance, I think we also need to stand strong afterwards and put those boundaries in place. And essentially, Brad, I think that's where, as parents, we have that responsibility to teach our children healthy digital habits. And like you said, the dads or adults are addicted to gaming. As moms, we spend so much time online. So it's definitely a family affair and mission. So I totally agree with you on that. Talking about this mission, it's a spiritual battle. So if we look at it from that point of view, how do you stay strong and stay active in this battle? You mentioned earlier what your motivation is, but how do you actually manage?
I appreciate you asking that. I wrote a whole chapter on that, on what we do, not because it's a law or you have to do exactly what I do. It's just a framework to show you that it can be done. So, as you well know, I'm running a global thing here. I mean, I got different countries, we're planning. I'll be in Thailand and Australia and probably the Philippines and back to South Africa and Namibia, just, and more probably. So it's not, the only reason I say that this, Rianette, is because I am just as busy as anyone else, maybe a little more so. So if I can do this, I know most people who work 9 to 5 can do this. So I'll just tell you what I do. Number one, I have no notifications turned on my phone at all, and haven't for years. It never dings, it never buzzes, it never flashes, nothing. And my cortisol levels, there's science behind all this that I talk about in the book. Yes. My stress hormone levels are way down. So I live in just a constant state of peace. Now, I have blips because I live life and I have stress. Yeah. Flights don't go well. People die in my family and have to do funerals, all that sort of stuff. But instead of riding up here with stress levels, they just blip every so often. And that's because I have no notifications on my phone. So what I do instead, and what I've written about, is I use my favorites instead. So there are 2 people that are on the favorites. What that simply means is these are the people who, when they call, it will ring. And it's my mother and my wife.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Yes.
So when I have an emergency, like we had a death in my family this week, and I appreciate that. But they were needing my attention. And so I added a person in my family to the favorites list. And as soon as all that was over, I took that person back off. But they were able to get to me. Yes. But there were only 3. And so that's one thing. The phones, when I'm home and not traveling, they're on the charger away from our hearing at 4:00 in the afternoon. Done. And they don't come back on until the next day.
Yes.
So I sleep. And this is going to sound weird, but there's no technology in my bedroom. There's a white noise maker in there.
Yes.
Because my wife has tinnitus, which is ringing of the ears, and the research is great. It actually puts you into REM sleep and leaves you there longer. So I get benefit out of the thing, and it just blows this fan noise. It's a little box. So there's no app on or nothing. There's no technology in there. So I sleep the full amount that I'm supposed to just about every night.
That's
I go to bed at 7 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Okay.
But you know what I did? The only thing I did was I cut out television. Now I watch some, but obviously going to bed 7:30, I'm not watching much. So I used to stay up and Netflix binge until 9, 10 o'clock. I quit and I went to bed, and my wife initiated all this. So I give her all the credit in the book. And then we get up at 3 a.m. This morning was about 2:30. And the first thing I do is what everybody else does. And then I get a cup of coffee. And then I go to the lounge room, or the living room, we call it. And there are my two versions of the Bible, a book that I'm reading, and my journal, my diction from the. So I spend time with God, and we have our prayer time. We had our prayer time, and then I go to the gym and I work out for about 2 hours,
That's
and then
Brad, so sorry about our call that got dropped. I am very curious to hear more about your exercise, because you said that you do go to gym for 2 hours in the morning, and then you were going to tell us about the rest of your day.
Yeah. So one of the things that repairs the brain, the two things humanly that you can do that have been scientifically shown that repair the brain the most and other parts of the body, are sleep. Number one, sleep, proper sleep. So for you and me, we need 7 to 9 hours. So let's just say an average of 8.
Okay.
Your typical child needs about 9.5. So up through the teenage years, they need an average of 9. So I make sure that I get enough sleep, and their brain repairs. And then exercise would rank up there with sleep in terms of the repair that happens. Not to mention the side effects of exercise, like your clothes fitting, blood work being good, doctors staying off your case and stuff like that.
Of course.
But I've had health issues before. I was overweight. I have a genetic blood issue. My mother and I do.
Okay.
And if I keep my body fat percentage at a certain place, we have discovered, then I don't need medication, and I'm perfectly normal. So it's a challenge. And then, of course, at my age, I'm 58. If I want to continue to gallivant around the planet and serve God the way I do, I need to sleep enough, and I need to be in good physical shape. But the brain health that happens to undo the stresses, the normal stresses and the digital stresses, are absolutely key. So you don't need to exercise that much. I just do, because I'm a bit competitive, and I do a sport called gymnastics and calisthenics. So these things require a lot of time. So I make time for that. So what I do is I sacrifice television time the night before. So for years, I wouldn't exercise. I ate bad food all the time. I eat bad food some now, but I've switched it. So instead of eating healthy occasionally, I eat healthy all the time. And then when I want something bad, I just eat it, and it doesn't bother me. But the exercise and the sleep have become very crucial for health reasons. So again, you don't need to exercise long like I do. A good 45-minute session will do. So I'm working on that as far as my schedule goes, even when I travel. So all of those things are because I was very unwell. I went through a burnout. I went through depression. I went through anxiety disorders because of all these screens in here.
Yeah.
And I was forced into that. And then, of course, after studying all the neuroscience, I realized that no wonder I felt better after 6 weeks. I didn't even know all the science, but I crashed really hard and found out the hard way.
Yeah.
So I have brought discipline into my life, and no one who's ever done this has ever regretted it.
And it's a sad thing that you actually need to get to that point where you feel it, where you actually experience it in such a way that you're like, I never want to go back there. And and that's, I think, as adults, if we realize that, and the potential that our young people could get to that point, plus all the additional stress that they need to handle as young adults and teenagers and so forth, then there's no wonder that they find other ways to deal with stress. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And, those two things, sleep and exercise, time that is being eaten away through the stuff that we consume online. And it's silly to think that we watch other people exercise or we watch other people relaxing instead of doing it ourselves. So it is a really good reminder. And I think, wise for us all to consider, you know, thinking about what we watch online and how we spend our time before bed. It reminds me of a friend of mine. She always says, young, like little children, watch a show. It has a beginning and an ending, like one episode. That's enough. Whereas with all the social media that we watch and all these reels, they just continue one after the other, and the algorithms, we know, is just feeding us. So yeah, I think that's so critical to consider. Sleep.
Renette, if I may add one quick thing to that,
Yes.
there will never be a price tag that you can put on having a clear head where you can hear the small, still voice of the Lord.
Hmm.
I would not. One of my big regrets, I was so full of digital addiction for years that when I cleaned up, where God helped me and allowed me to crash, I discovered that I had a gift, and I didn't know that I had it. We're born with these things that God gives us, and it's up to us to pursue Him and find it. But I found out I had this gift to write books,
That's awesome
and you know what my regret is?
that you
I
did it.
wish I'd have done it earlier. How much further along could I be in helping people? So you won't regret getting close to the Lord
Mm,
and clearing your head and do deep thinking and having those prayer times. You'll be shocked at what God has built into you that's being covered up by digital noise. So if there's a selling point, there it is, sister.
yes.
Roll with that one, because He has these wonderful plans for us. I mean, God's used you. You've done a TED talk. You've done all these things. If you weren't attached with your spiritual umbilical cord, none of this stuff would happen. And I'm certainly not gifted enough to make this stuff happen. It's just because God, I heard His voice, and then He equipped me, along the journey. And so, the digital world's great in what we're doing, and I have a degree in it, haven't renounced it, but listen, plug into the Lord and make all the time in the world for Him with no technology anywhere near you, and just watch God work. Just watching.
I say, I say amen to that. Amen to that, because it is really wonderful when you hear his voice and when you know, okay, I am taking one step at a time. Scary. I mean, personally, I just hold on to the Lord and say, please don't let me fall, because I cannot do anything without him. And especially the type of things that we deal with. Um,
Mm.
it's hard sometimes, or it's actually hard all the time to see what happens. But anyone in any space, regardless of where you are planted or operate in, I totally agree with you. We need all these puzzle pieces to
Mm.
to have a full picture. So, Brad, thank you so much for your time. I really I value it, and it's always a good reminder. Sometimes it's practical things, and other times it's, like you say, listen to the voice of the Lord and being still. And you made me think again, something that I always remind people of is like your identity. You must know it's grounded, and like, our identity is found in the Lord and the fact that we are saved. But we can be so bombarded by all the noise and all the different messages we hear. But at the end of the day, if we stand still or sit still and listen, yeah, we will be treasured. And I think, thank you for what you do. Please continue. And yeah, I really trust that this book, like your others, will transform lives. And one thing that I've noticed is that sometimes we don't hear of everyone that you actually did help, but each person creates a ripple effect. And I trust that you've created waves in this world. So please keep on doing that. And thank you very much for
And now, look, I echo for you. There's just not too many people that want to stand up in front of crowds and deal with this. I just had a really hard crowd, but the Lord still pursues us when we are not too interested in Him. So no matter what our audience is, most of the time they react nicely, but occasionally you get those, that don't. And, but you just keep loving them. And that's what I encourage you to do, Rianette. Just keep loving people, keep helping them. And, that's how God treats us, even when we're shaking our little human fists at him, going, leave me alone, leave me alone. He goes, no, because I love you. So that's how we treat people.
That's so
So
true.
thank you for your platform.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Brad. And on a side note, now that you say, we shake our fists, I remember in the beginning of my journey, I felt like Noah who had to build an ark. And I was like, there's no way, Lord, I don't want this fight. I am very happy with my public relations and marketing job, and doing public relations for all kinds of amazing, fascinating, interesting, and luxurious brands. This thing is scary. I don't want to go into the dark web and the evil stuff that it has. But when this is it, this is your purpose, it doesn't leave you alone. So we carry it, and we work together. So Brad,
Amen.
thank you for your time. I hope that you'll have a wonderful rest of the day, and may you and Beth be blessed. And whenever you're back in South Africa, may you always experience the sunny South Africa that we are proud of.
We're looking forward to getting back next August. So it's on our calendar and we can't wait. Bless you, sister. We appreciate you.
Well, it's my birthday then, Brad, so maybe we'll see each other for a birthday cake.
Hey, listen, I will work out twice at the gym if you'll bring me over for cake and Malva pudding. That's my request.
Oh, fantastic, Malva pudding. Yeah, that's definitely one of the highlights on this side. So
Yes,
thank you, Brad. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.